You'll never miss your woman until she said goodbye. Lord, the road is rocky, but it won't be rocky long, Lord, Lord. Lord, the road is rocky, but it won't be rocky long. Another man has got my woman and gone. I wish to the Lord you'd bring my woman back home. I wish to the Lord you'd bring my woman back home. I'm not so lonesome, just don't want to be alone. Lord, the road is rocky, but it won't be rocky long. Lord, Lord, the road is rocky, but it won't be rocky long. Another man has got my woman and gone.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Where'd the old town go? They moved it all north of here in a shopping mall. Ooh, where'd the old town go? Did my hometown get old? Or just me? Did all my friends get old? Or just me? Are they all gonna have to be told? Or just me?
Good morning and welcome to Old Town Cleveland here on WOOP FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.woopfm.com. You can call us here at 614-5553. Debbie Moore, tell me what's going on this morning.
Good morning. It's November the 1st, 2014, and it's rather chilly outside for the first day of November.
It'd be a good day for chili, wouldn't it?
It would be a great day for chili, and we have lots of snow in the area. I understand that Highway 441 in the Great Smoky Mountains has been closed. So if you're going out to look at fall foliage today, you might see a little white stuff on it.
They set up at Copper Hill last night during the Copper Basin football game. It was snowing during the game.
That's right.
So-
And so it's kind of an unusual weather day. And don't forget to set your clocks back tonight before you go to bed, or you'll be running on the wrong time
It's
tomorrow.
a good thing when you go to bed tonight, you get an extra hour of sleep in the morning, unless you're my son-in-law and daughter, who my granddaughter gets up at 6 every morning, so tomorrow
guess
she'll
what?
get up at 5. So she's going to
have
be
a
up
nice
very
day.
early tomorrow.
We have Jeff Morlock with us today, and we're really excited about a project that he's worked on for some time now. He has made a map of the downtown area from 1957 using the Cleveland City Directory and his memory and the memories of lots of other folks. And I noticed there are a few buildings that have no name on it. So there might be some people listening that can help fill in with that.
And there's some names on the map that I did not recognize. Yeah, I'm going, there's places with Ards. You told me was a gentleman out of Chattanooga that ran a women's clothing store. Is that true?
That's true. It's Mr. Ard was a gentleman, a Jewish gentleman from Chattanooga that my daddy knew him, and I guess I'd probably seen him when I was a little boy, but I really don't remember him, but I remember his name real well, but he had a store on Ocoee Street, and then I think later on he moved it down on Inman Street. But
was it right behind Moore Pharmacy back in there? Is that where it is?
It was across the street from.
It was in the Banner Building, right?
In the Banner Building.
Oh, in the Banner Building. Okay,
Yeah,
I've got the wrong
it'd be
street
what's
there.
next door to Cafe Roma now. I guess
Yes.
it'd be right in that area.
Draper Darwin. Those
Right,
days?
right in that area.
Okay.
Yes.
I think one of the funniest things in the 1970s, when painter pants came in style, those white painter pants with all the hammer holders and all that stuff on them, or carpenter pants, I guess you would call them, came into style. That was Draper and Darwin was the place to go to get authentic
I
pants.
I remember Draper and Darwin quite well.
And I think what amazed me is that I went in and bought a pair, and instead of putting them down in a paper bag or a paper poke, as some of us would say, they tore off a big sheet of paper and wrapped them up and tied it with twine. And I'm sure I just kind of stood there and stared at them because I had never seen anyone do that before. And for a while, Ron's aunt and uncle ran that. C.L. Hilliard and Miss Tommy worked with the Smith family and ran that store. And you can still see, I don't know if you can still see, but not too many years ago, you could see Draper and Darwin in the tile works on the sidewalk up the street. It was a little bit south of the last location.
Before we get too far into it, first I want to say it's thanks to Jeff. Jeff served Bradley County as a county commissioner. We'd like to thank you. Anybody that goes and serves time,
Serves time. It felt like serving time every now and then. Didn't it?
Sometimes it did.
at
yes.
the county commission is an honor. I think it's the hardest political job out there to be a county commissioner. You know, state senators get to go to Nashville and don't get to see the people every day like you did. So, Jeff, thank you so much for your service.
Well, it was an honor for me to serve. It was an honor that bestowed on me by the people in the 3rd County District, and it was an honor for me to get to serve for 4 years. I truly did appreciate the opportunity, and I thank folks for letting me do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, here online, we have a hello to Jethro from Randy Fox. So he's tuned in this morning and wanted to say hello to Jethro.
Judge Fox, one of my dear friends from over on 4th Street, next door to Arnold School.
Right. Tell us about your who your dad and mom were and grandparents and things like that. Just sort of.
Well, now you're Jefferson Davis Moorlock the what?
Third.
There you go. Good Southern name.
My grandson is Jefferson Davis Moorlock the 5th.
Excellent.
So my dad was he was also served in the old county court in the 30s and 40s and 50s. And my mother came to Cleveland in, I think, in 1933 when Bob Jones College moved from down around Panama City, Florida to Cleveland. She came with the college, and she and my dad, somehow they got together and met each other here and got married, and I guess I was a product of that. I don't think I got much of my mother's intelligence. I think most of that was passed on to my grandchildren, and my children. But anyway, she came to Cleveland and with Bob Jones College and taught at Bob Jones. And an interesting little side note on that: when Billy Graham's daughter came to Cleveland, about 3 years ago, I guess, to when they dedicated Billy Graham Boulevard over by Lee University, I asked, can't think what her name was, but I said, it's no big deal, but ask your dad when you get back if he remembers my mother, because she was at Bob Jones when Billy Graham attended there for one semester or one quarter, and I didn't hear anything. About 3 months later, I got an email from her that said he remembered her very well. So that was just kind of a little interesting side note. And
so what did your dad do?
My dad was in the concrete tile business down at the corner of Central Avenue and King Edward Avenue. He made concrete tile by hand. He had 6 12-inch forms, 4 24-inch forms, and 6 18-inch forms. The concrete was mixed by hand. They'd get a 94-pound sack of cement that he bought from Cleveland Builder Supply, and they'd mix up sand and gravel and cement in a big old box and pour it with coal buckets. Everything was done by hand, and if you wanted any tile, you brought your own truck, and they'd load them by hand.
I love it, Jeff. And how did he learn how to do that?
Well, I'm not sure how he learned to do it. That's all he ever did. Mm-hmm. Besides when he was
I was kind of suspecting he might have been in the CCC.
No, he was not in that. That was, I guess, really after his time.
Oh, after his time.
And he started, somehow or other, my grandfather, he told me, got him involved in it. I don't know how.
Okay.
Exactly. He learned to do it. I mean, there wasn't It wasn't rocket science to make these tile by hand.
No, but it took a
But it
dedicated, hard-working
took a
person,
lot
I'm
of
sure.
work, and
But you
he-
had to get the mix right to make sure they didn't break up, right?
Well, absolutely. And then he reinforced the 24-inch tile with wire that he got from the Cleveland Broom Factory down on Old Dalton Pike down there at. Every so often I'd go with him. They've got straw in down there wrapped in this heavy-duty wire, and they didn't have anything to do with the wire, so he'd go down there and get that wire and use it for reinforcement in the big tile.
So he started recycling, right?
Yeah,
He-
he invented reason.
I don't know if he invented it or not, but he used that wire for.
Where was the broom factory? Give me an idea where it was.
Well, you go. It was on the right. I think the building's still down there. I don't think they're in business anymore, but you go. It's somewhere south of where Waterville School is. You
Okay.
go just a little way south of there on the right. It was a white building that I think the folks that owned it lived in front of it, and they used to go. I mean, even not too many years ago, they'd come around selling brooms in offices. You know, they'd come around and see if anybody in the offices. They'd bring 4 or 5 brooms and want to know if anybody bought one. But I think they also sold them in grocery stores around here. It was just a small operation, but
Well, Jeff, I kept fussing about the brooms that you get these days were not very good, so we went up to the Mennonite farm, and I paid a high price for one of their handmade brooms. And those little Mennonite women must be of strong nature, because that's a big old heavy broom, and I haven't knocked one bristle off of it yet.
well, you know, the ones you buy mostly now are plastic.
Yes, and they just, you'll be sweeping it falls
But,
apart. Jeff, do you remember the names of any of the gentlemen that worked with your dad at the tiling company? Probably all nicknames is all you remember.
Well, I'm trying to think. John Dewey Hudgens, he's one I remember. Dewey Hudgens. John Trentham, I think was his name, and this gentleman that his son works for D. Burris now, and I've seen him at SPCA gatherings. I'm trying to think of his name, but his son, this gentleman's son works for D. Burris now, and
Okay, well that's fine. Our listeners like to hear names of people that did things. So
Jeff,
what did your mom teach? I'm sorry, Ron. What did
Go
your
ahead.
mom teach at Bob Jones?
she was a math teacher.
Math teacher.
Yeah, she taught math, and she was also dean of the university for a while.
Wow.
And
Do you have any pictures of the university while she was here?
I've
A few?
got a few, and I've got a.
There's just like 2 pictures out there of the university, and it would be nice to get some more out, especially if we have names for them, because there's just a very few pictures.
There was a gentleman over here, I guess it's been about 10 years ago, that Bob Jones was trying to do I guess some sort of historical narrative about the college, and he came over here to gather information, and I took him around to meet several people that I knew had attended Bob Jones, mostly in the academy. They also had an academy, and there's still several people around, or was at that time, that had attended this academy. And I found some artifacts in our garage. One of them was a letter where my mother was negotiating with Bob Jones in North Florida. They told her if she'd agree to go back to college and get her master's degree, they'd start her out at $100 a month. And
That's big money then.
Big money then, because I remember my cousin Ann Chase.
And for a woman to have a big money job was really amazing.
Yeah, I remember my cousin Ann Chase that taught in Bradley County schools for years, and she said when she started in the late 30s, her pay was, I think it was either $60 or $65 a month. So $100 a month in the 20s was pretty big money, I guess.
Yeah, it sure was. Jeff, was you born at Speck or at Bradley?
I was born at Speck Hospital. There was no Bradley Hospital when I was born.
I think Speck come along about the year I was born, 54.
I was born on the same day as Tommy Childers and DeEtta Mason. We were born on December 10th, 1946.
That's a trio.
And oftentimes have called those two people on the 10th and wish them a happy birthday. But
So you guys were born like 8 years before the hospital opened, 7
well,
years?
46.
Yeah.
I think it opened in 52.
53 or 50?
52.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, our Mr. Jones was the first one born at Bradley Memorial.
I've heard
First
that
one,
before.
yeah.
And
Well, that's what he claimed at least.
that
you
was
know.
52, and that was the same year my wife was born. And I cannot remember if she was born at Speck or Bradley Hospital, but anyway, she was born in 52. And
Well, I was born in Georgia because my sister had been born in 53, and my mom and dad still owed the bill of $54 for the care of the baby and the mama, and a 2 or 3 day hospital stay on my sister. So when I got ready to be born, we lived right on the Georgia-Tennessee line, so they went to Dalton to have me.
probably cheaper, I guess.
Probably
down there.
cheaper.
Cheaper down there.
But $54, my mom, I
Yeah.
had, when we were looking through my mom's stuff one day, we found that bill, and she said, now we did pay that.
Do you remember an event called Amigo Days?
Was that when
Cisco Kid
Cisco Kid came to town?
Yes, sure
Yes.
did. Yeah.
I remember that quite well. I walked with the Cisco Kid from the Cherokee Hotel up to the courthouse. And I told him, I said, now your show comes on here in Cleveland at whatever time, at 4 o'clock or something. He just said, oh, really? But, yeah, I remember the Cisco Kid, and they had some kind of I used to have that picture that they handed out.
Yes.
Yeah,
The only one I've seen lately is there's one in the county commission office up at the courthouse that I don't know who it belongs to, but it's on the wall up there. But I had one of those and I lost it somehow or other. But
I've got one.
that was 19.
yes.
What year was that? 50.
59, I believe, was it?
59.
Yeah,
59.
before it was to compete with the Village Shopping Center opening. They were trying to keep.
There was a
downtown business.
promotional
Yeah.
of merchants, and they had some kind of a deal that whoever had the most receipts won a prize or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they, all the merchants that participated in it in some form or fashion. They, but I remember the Cisco Kid. It was a big deal when
Well, now,
Cisco
you
Kid
know, his
came to
name
Cleveland.
was Duncan Ronaldo. That was his acting name. You know what his real name was? Ronaldo Duncan.
Oh, I didn't
He
know
just
that.
reversed his name.
It don't sound too much like the Cisco Kid, does it?
But yeah,
Well, I was watching on the old movie channel the other night, and it was about a 1930 movie, and he was in it. And he must have been like 20 years old or early 20s when he's in it, but it was like just past the silent movie days, and he was one of the. He wasn't a star in it, but he was one of the principal actors in this movie. It was about 1930 movie.
now you grew up down on 4th Street, is that right?
Central Avenue.
Central Avenue. Okay, where at on Central?
Well, it's next to the last house on the left before you cross going east before you cross the railroad.
Like where the little garden is now?
Yes, that's my son owns that property.
Does
Oh,
he?
yeah.
Does he?
Yeah, where the garden is. He lets the church use it for a community garden.
And who had, do you know who built that house? I know the house has been gone for several years
Well,
now.
the one in the middle where we live, my grandfather built it in about 1896, something like that, somewhere in there, because they lived in a little house next to it at first, and then they built that house in the late 1890s, and
I sure hate that we lost a couple of old houses there.
You probably
just in
seen
the
an
years.
assembly or two then, didn't you?
I look forward to the assembly that was a big deal for me when the assembly came to town. It was a big deal. I look forward
And I
to
imagine
that.
your mom and dad just let you go. You just went to the
Well, you
assembly.
could, yeah, anybody could do that back then.
Oh,
right?
yeah. we
you
just,
didn't have to worry about where your kid was.
No,
or,
you just go over there and hang out. I'd go up there and just hang out and walk around and see all the assembly stands. And I've got pictures that made. They had a trailer up there that have your picture made in.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a picture of, I guess, when I was about 10 years old with my dog. And
take your dog to the assembly.
and they had Otto Hoffer had a restaurant up there. He lived across the street from my father-in-law. I didn't know anything about at the time, but they used to run that Exxon dealership. He had a partner, and they ran the Exxon dealership. And there was a filling station next to it. And then in the next house, Otto Hoffman lived there, and he had a little place across the street. It's kind kind of like a restaurant in front and a little grocery store in the back. But and then, of course, he got busy there. And then Fat Schultz had a little place on the corner there, East Side Diner, and I guess he catered to the people that worked over there at Cleveland Milling Company. And he, those places got real busy during the assembly. And then Dooley's Ice Cream up there, they got so busy during the assembly they ran out of ice cream. And then M.C. Hedrick started out there just west of Central Avenue. He rented a building from Jim Range, which was kind of butted up to Jim Range's house, and he had a little store there. And then he moved up there next to Dooley's, and then he went across the street over there and built a big fancy modern store. But during the assembly, he always rented out his parking lot. Dooley's Ice Cream had a place on the corner of on M.C. Hedrick's lot, and then there was this lady that used to have a ladies' store down here at the village. She and her husband had a stand over there every assembly, and there was 3 or 4 around M.C. Hedrick's there that sold hamburgers and hot dogs, and that was a big deal to go up
Tatum.
there. Tatum, that's who it was. Yeah.
See, me and Jeff, we can come up with them. If he
Tatum,
gets one name, I'll get the other one.
Tatum,
I think Dooley, they said snowballs out front too, didn't he?
Dooley stole snowballs, and in their stand down there, they had a little thing on the east side for the snowballs, and then the ice cream was on the west side. And
do you remember Mr. Dooley?
I remember Mr. Dooley.
Big man.
You'd go in there at night, and you could look back there in the back, and he'd be back sitting in the back of the creamery back there taking a nap. And after he died, Bob Holland, who was their son-in-law, was the ice cream maker, and I'd go in there. We were friends with all of them, and we'd go in there and go back and see Bob. And when he was making ice cream, he'd let me get a little bit of that soft ice cream as it was being made out of the ice cream machine. But
we've had several folks on the show that talked about being young and working there for the creameries in town. There was more than one. Mr. Dugan. Dunlap, thank you.
He had Cleveland Creamery over there on Inman Street.
They said there was nothing like getting to scrape whatever they were making the ice cream in clean and getting that last few bites of ice cream out of it.
And then you go up to Vest Dairy up there, and they'd make ice cream cones up and put a cellophane wrapper over it and put it out in the freezer out front. Back when they had a Vest Dairy, and then they had Seal Test, and that Vest Grocery up there used to be a regular supermarket. And Bosch Lawson was their butcher for a while. Later on, he had his own sausage, Bosch Lawson Sausage, here in town. Mm-hmm. But he was a butcher up there. But what I remember most about Vest, they had a big old walk-in cooler up there, and if you wanted a watermelon, you could go in there, and they had a walk-in cooler about big as this studio down here, and you could go in there.
I can see my daddy walking up through that store with one of them up on his shoulder. He'd go back there and pick out the biggest one.
You go back there and get a watermelon, and they were already cold in that big old cooler. Mm-hmm. And then they had the dairy next to it. They called it Vest Dairy, and then it became Seal Test Dairy, and I don't know how long it's been shut down, but
Seal Test was a big milk product for you for a long time.
Yeah, a long time. It was a big national or regional product, I guess. But anyway, I don't know how long that's been shut down. And then you had Cleveland Creamery over there on Inman Street, and they had I didn't go in there much, but my daddy was friends with Johnny Dunlap, they called him. They served on the county commission together for a while, or the old county court. And
probably Milford Miller.
Milford Miller served with my daddy for years. They were friends. Milford ran that filling station right across the street from where I grew up. Mm-hmm. I've got a sign or a picture of Milford. My daddy must have been made about 1930, and then Milford's got on these old white coveralls like they used to wear in the garage with grease all over it, and he's talking to my daddy, and there's a gas sign that says 20 cents or something like that. And
now, help me here. Which gas station did
that would be where Elliott's Tire is now?
Right there on the corner. They tore down that filling station at Milford, ran about 59, and built Athens Oil Company owned it, and they built the building that's there now, and
What was the grocery store next to it? My mind.
B&B food store, BB food store.
And then it later became.
Well, Toby bought out
yeah.
BB when Toby burned down uptown. Mr. Bethel Brown called him and said, "Let me just sell out to you because I want to retire." So Toby bought out B&B food store and changed the name to Toby's.
What was your favorite flavor down at Dooley's?
I've
never met an ice cream I didn't like, Jeff.
I'm kind of like that. One scoop of ice cream just cost a nickel, so you could experiment. You could get a whole banana split for 35 cents, and what do they cost now? About $6 or $7.
And then they ask you what kind of ice cream you want.
John
and I'm
Cook.
going, no, it's vanilla and
John
chocolate.
Cook grew up on the east side, and he'd walk over there, and they were poor, he said, and a nickel was hard to come by. So he always had vanilla because he knew he liked vanilla, and he wasn't going to risk his
taking
nickel.
chances.
But now grape ice cream, of course, is what they're famous for, and we do have the grape ice cream recipe from Dooley's.
It's kind of a funky taste, but I think it's just something that brings people back.
And
to their
our friends
childhood.
at Scoops and Burger had a little.
I remember the grape ice cream. I don't know. I mean, I didn't dislike it or anything. I don't.
It's hard to beat a good
I don't
chocolate.
remember anything that they had Dooley's had a board on the wall, and they'd have all the different flavors, and they had about 10 in each column. And then during the assembly, you'd go in there, they'd only have about 3 up there because they'd run out of everything. They had to make it so fast.
I want to mention that Fro Daddy's going to be at the Akoi Winery today from 3 to 8 p.m. as part of the Grape
drinking?
Escape. You might want to get there right at 3 o'clock, so Fro Daddy hadn't already gone through all the wine. And congratulations to the folks that put on the block party last night. The weather didn't cooperate too much, but there was lots of folks out there having a good time.
Right, and the sheriff had on the scariest outfit I ever seen.
Was he just dressed in his normal attire?
Yeah, that's true. He was just him, and that was
Just
scary
his
to me.
normal attire.
Yeah. And then, of course, I won't talk about his chief deputy, but
I wanna
poor
mention-
boy needs some hair. I mean, that's all there is to it.
Yeah, he's.
I want to mention, too, that next week's show, we're going to have an early show starting right around 9 o'clock as soon as we can get on the air. We're going to have one of the Cherokee Supreme Court justices here from Oklahoma, Troy Petite. And not only is Troy a Supreme Court justice, but he also portrays Samuel Houston, the Raven, and he'll be doing that presentation out at Blythe Ferry. And then he'll be at he'll be in Chattanooga Monday night doing a presentation. So we have first dibs on him. I talked to him last year, and he said he would come and be with us. And then at our regular 10 o'clock show, we're going to have 2 very special guests for Veterans Day. We're going to have Bill Norwood, that was a prisoner of war, and we're going to have George Allen, that's a survivor of Pearl Harbor.
Well, that's some.
Yeah, there's some good shows.
Hey, we're going to open up the phones now. You're listening to Whoop FM 99.9 or the internet at www. You can call us here at 614-5553. We got our first phone call. Good morning. You're live.
Good morning, Ron. How you doing?
Hey, Bullet, how are you?
I saw you last night there.
I saw you too.
Yeah, I was handing out so much candy. I was shooting fireworks coming out of my hand.
Well, if you got your brother Paul out of line, you wouldn't have to give out as much. Paul must went through the line about 20 times.
Yeah, and I met Eric Watson, and he come by and saw me, and but it was. I tell you what I enjoy is seeing all the little kids dressed up, and I really enjoyed doing that. I was helping Mark Grissom out, but it turned out that he left me, and I think he just took off. But,
Yeah. Well, nobody's better to run the Whoop booth side Bullet.
Well, I'm just glad. Like I say, I enjoyed looking at all the little kids dressed up, and they was cute as pie. But
You like the older women dressed in cat outfits.
Now.
well, there was actually some come by me. I know they was in their 20s or 30s, but like I say, it was a good night and it was windy. But I enjoyed seeing you come by, Ron.
Did it? Well, I was there. I was just walking down the center line of the road. I was just kind of hitting both sides as I was going, but I thought it was really good, and I enjoyed seeing the Cashdales there. Those are some enormous horses.
I don't think Paul Betsy showed up, did he?
Oh, I don't know. We had to go meet our granddaughter, so that's sort of. They were at the mall.
And boy, that place was hopping
That
with
was
little
hopping
bitty
on-
kids.
It was inside and warm. I think more people was headed that way.
I'd like to mention something about what your guest talking about a few minutes ago, and I'll get off. I think you say he lived on Central Street, Central Avenue.
Central Avenue.
I live right behind him on we used to live in Toby Taylor's house, the 2nd Street from that, on 2nd Street there. We live in Toby Taylor's house. And I'm gonna give a shout out to Randy Fox. He's a good friend of mine, me and my brothers. And I actually met him on really, I ain't gonna say how I met him.
Y'all met in jail, did you?
Huh?
Did you meet in jail?
No, back when '62, there was a boy shooting BBs at him, and Randy thought me and my brother doing it, and so he got a whole gang of boys and was going to run us down. But it was a misunderstanding, and like I say though, I consider him a friend of mine, and I just want to say hello to Randy Fox.
Well, he couldn't run you down now.
No.
Well, good talking to you, Bullet.
We'll see.
Bye-bye. Robert calling in, or Bullet calling in, reminds me that the cemetery tour, hats off to Lee University, Cleveland State, Brian Reed, and everybody that made that possible. There was a mob up there Sunday. I think we're going to have to do something additional about the parking. There wasn't enough parking, so I think some people actually left, or they left and they came back. But there was a huge crowd. Thank you for paying attention to history. And I know a lot of people there were our listeners, and I appreciate y'all coming out. And I think they did an excellent job. I understand any profits made from that adventure goes to the Bill Snell History Scholarship at Lee University. And that just doesn't happen. There's people who've been working for months on that.
It's really good. And we got Jeff Morlock here today, a former county commissioner and a lifetime resident of Bradley County, and also a former insurance man. I believe you're retired now. Is that true?
About semi-retired, let's put it that way. They still let me come in and have an office.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I want to mention, too, that you guys are listening to this show and you're really enjoying Jeff's memories. Well, we'd like for you to come on and tell your memories sometime. Get somebody to come with you. Jeff was brave. He came by himself this morning. But it's not hard, is it, Jeff?
No. I've been here before.
It's pretty painless.
It's not as bad as talking political talk.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's much more fun to talk about your childhood memories
Right.
than political stuff. Yeah. But especially someone that maybe's a generation back further than Jeff, we'd really like to have someone come on the show and talk about Cleveland in maybe the late 40s. So let us know.
It's great to people. Now, Jeff, let's talk about my favorite subject, food. There was a few places to eat downtown. Of course, I remember very well the Grand Lunch.
Grand Lunch, that was the original fast food restaurant in Cleveland. You could walk in the door, holler out what you wanted, and by the time you sat down, they'd have it in front of you. And by the time you took 2 bites, they'd say, "Piece of pie." You could go in there and have a leisurely lunch and be out in 15 minutes.
Well, isn't that the truth? I mean, it was. I mean, you say they'd ask you what you want, steak, beans, corn.
Now, did they have like specials every day, or was it just the same menu all the time? Is why it was easy.
I think it was pretty much the same all the time. Mr. Osment ran the restaurant, and at night, Judy Radcliffe's daddy ran it at night. I can't think what his name was, but
Could you get an adult beverage at night down there?
I don't think so. I don't remember them selling any adult beverages. They did sell some adult paraphernalia, but I won't mention it on air.
I hadn't heard that before.
But
now you got my car.
But anyway, I don't remember them selling adult beverages. I don't.
Maybe just beer. Maybe just.
I don't think so.
know.
I don't think they sold beer, but I do remember that Judy Radcliffe's daddy, I think his name was Webb, ran it at night, and then. But it was a very popular place for working people to eat at lunch.
Well, then you had Moore's Pharmacy, get things, Dooley's Pharmacy, not Dooley Ice Cream.
Dooley's Drugstore.
Dooley's Drugstore.
Dooley's Drugstore. And then Central Drugstore uptown had a bar where I don't mean a bar, I mean a food counter.
Right. And those are good always. Hey, go ahead, Collie. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, Miss Debbie.
Good morning. What's up, buddy? I liked that pizza last week.
Pardon me?
She said she liked that pizza last week.
Well, that will work.
That will work.
Well, I understand you're going to start doing delivery of those pizzas.
Well, yeah, starting Wednesday, things go right in the immediate area. We are going to be doing delivery.
Sort of downtown area?
Yes, sir.
This is Jeff from the O Cafe there inside the Oasis convenience store at the corner of Central and Inman Street. First and Inman, excuse me, as you enter historic downtown Cleveland. So, and go in there and see them. I get my biscuit there every morning, Jeff.
You do. Matter of fact, we just about set our clocks by you, Ron.
That's right.
The only thing is you need to start bringing your wife in.
I go in the opposite direction.
She's
in the
so
mornings.
independent.
Well, Ron had said something about I told him he needed to start thinking. He goes, she's on her own.
Yes, I'm on my own. That's right.
And that's the way she wants it.
Yeah.
But the only thing is I've got to flip a quarter.
Okay.
Who's got the better nose for food, Ron or Debbie?
Ron.
Yeah, I wanted to yell and say good morning. What did y'all do with the weather?
We got out of it. That's what we did.
Yeah, we just barely dodged it, didn't we?
We
Yeah.
sure did.
Yeah. Well, y'all have a good day.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Bye-bye.
Hey, and if you tell them the number they call if they want to order a pizza.
Do what?
What telephone number do they call if they want to order a pizza?
584-7844.
That's right.
Thank you.
Get them delivered there to downtown. Don't have to get out in this cold weather. Let Jeff get frozen.
Starting Wednesday.
Thank you. I love you too, Ron.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Jeff.
You know, right down there where they are, there was that's where Samples. I believe it's Samples grocery store. I believe was right there. And he it was kind of an old-fashioned store. You know, you'd go in there, there wouldn't be but one person in there, and they probably delivered groceries on a bicycle. And we used to walk down there from Arnold School sometimes. You'd go down there, and he'd keep you a loaf of light bread and some bologna in the refrigerator, and you'd go down there instead of eating in the cafeteria, you'd go down there and get you a bologna sandwich at Samples.
That's
Boy,
good.
Ron had a good bologna sandwich yesterday
Oh, yeah.
from the stadium.
Stadium
Fried
bar-
bologna sandwich.
Smoked
Oh boy,
bologna.
I like that
Smoked.
place.
It's smoked bologna.
Bologna,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I like that
Stadium
place.
barbecue is great.
And it was thick, too.
All right, now, where else? Now, we
I want
finished
to
off
know
food.
if he remembers C.J. Wilson.
I remember
Tell me
C.J.
about
Wilson.
C.J..
Well, I just remember, his brother was the president of Cleveland National Bank,
I did not know that.
and C.J. ran this it's up there where the law office is now. Don Dietrich,
Right.
and he had an old store in there, and what I remember is when they filmed Wild River in 1959, I guess they needed some of these collars that went on old-fashioned shirts when you had a separate collar, and they found them there at C.J. Wilson's store. Now I've heard that. I guess it's true.
Yeah.
If it's not, it sounds good anyway.
It sounds real good.
But he just had an old like men's store there, and he'd go in there, and he'd be the only one in there, and he ran it till he was about
90, yeah.
Yeah, about
he was
90.
old. But some people said there at the end he just sat at the door and really nobody ever came in the
Yeah,
store.
yeah,
He was
that's
just visiting.
That's what I remember when I was a little boy. I mean, you just go in there and there'd be an old man sitting there, and it just, other than out of curiosity, there wasn't much reason to go in there. But
Now, at one time, it was probably a very hopping place and a stylish place.
I'd
Wasn't it?
say it was back way before our time, way before.
Yeah,
but I do remember the store.
I happen to know where his sign is.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Oh, that'd be a collector's item.
Well, we don't know exactly where. I know who had it. He passed away just a couple of months ago. Now, the president of my class, his name was Robert Wilson, and we all called him CJ. Just that was the nickname we got, and somehow CJ become in possession of that sign. And
yeah.
I think the statute of limitations is gone. I think a couple of my classmates stole it off the front of the building and give it to CJ, and it was in his doctor's office in San Francisco.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I'll have to get hold of his sister.
So this is a different Robert Wilson from the lawyer.
Oh,
here in
yeah.
town.
Yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah. This is Robert Llewellyn. He was
Okay.
a psychiatrist
Okay.
But
in California.
he said he didn't know where the sign was, and it was leaning up in the background of the picture. So we know that it was in his office, but we hope his sister can.
Oh, that'd be a
confiscate
collector's
it.
item if
It
you
sure
had
is.
that.
Yeah.
Randy Fox added that Bob Parkinson was the butcher down at Samples.
Okay, well, Randy grew up in that neighborhood,
Yeah.
so he knows. I remember Bob Parkinson, and I think Mr. Samples, after he closed the store, went to work over at that Stewart Park Grocery over there on 17th Street.
Right.
I think he went to work over there after he closed his store down, I
Wasn't it-
believe.
Wasn't there a gas station right around where Molinek's car is there or something? Wasn't he?
It might have been one on the corner there.
The two brothers ran it.
There might have been one on the corner there. That'd be across the street from Samples, where Samples was.
Now, everybody knows about the Spot and the Grand Lunch and the pharmacy, but there's some other places eating downtown in the area around there.
Well, the Town and Country.
Randy says the Huff Twins.
The Huff
Apparently,
Twins.
Randy should be in here today.
Yeah.
The Huff Twins.
Yeah.
Were the ones that ran the service station.
Okay. Well, he grew up in that neighborhood. If he doesn't know,
I'm sure they all knew his name too.
Yeah, he was a terror of the neighborhood. I'm sure.
He said those were the brothers of Paul Huff. Huh.
Okay.
Yes, that's
okay.
right. I remember there's some story to that. Yeah.
But Town and Country restaurant down there on the corner of Inman and Church Street was a sort of upscale place to eat. That was, and then up above the Town and Country, that block was a hotel that burned in, I don't remember what year it burned. It was
Prater.
No, the Prater Hotel was
Hotel Cleveland.
Hotel Cleveland, I
right.
guess.
Yeah, it burned about 60, I think.
Yeah, that's probably about right because Cleveland Bank
that was the big fire down there. Yeah,
Cleveland Bank and Trust was up there by Cleveland
they moved
National,
down there in
and then
'66, which was way along sometime after the fire. So
yes, very interesting.
Well, let me, if I could,
go ahead.
I want to talk about my friend Janice Domer's book here. It's called Turnips on the Ceiling. It's a book about her growing up on Trunk Street from time she was basically born up through high school. And it just brings back a lot of memories. Janice and I grew up in First Cumberland Church together. And now she and her husband are back in Cleveland. And
she needs to come do our show.
She does. And it whetted my appetite when I started reading it. She said one of the first things she remembered was a Stivers lumber fire. And I said, now, Janice, when was that? And she said, well, I think it was about 49. I said, now, Janice, I said, you were only 3 years old. You wouldn't remember that if you were that. So I just started, I said, I'm going to find out when this fire was. And you can ask anybody that was around Cleveland, and everybody remembers the fire. My mother-in-law said she remembered it. She saw it out at Prospect. I talked to Don Baldy about it. He grew up over in that neighborhood, and he said, yeah, we came over and watched it burn. And Eddie Cartwright said, yeah, we were in church that night, Sunday night, and we came out of church and watched it burn. And so
where was Stivers? Help me here.
Stivers Lumber Company was when
next
you go
to the railroad track.
Next to the railroad track on 8th Street. It was on when you're going east on when you're going east on 8th Street. It's that lot right there before you go across the railroad. It's next to the railroad. The old kiln is still over there. You can go by there, and there's a gravel driveway. It runs kind of parallel with the train tracks, and you can drive down through there and see the old kiln. And that building that's there right on the corner by the railroad it was one that didn't burn. It's been remodeled 2 or 3 times. But the Stivers fire was March the 9th, 1952. And this article here in the paper says that there was about over 1,000 people were over there watching it burn. And I remember the fire from when I was just barely 5 years old when this happened. But I remember my daddy said, look out the back window, and you could see a big flame out our back window from 3 points. And
did they know what set the fire?
No, I don't think so.
Sometimes stuff just happens.
So stuff just happens. Another interesting thing about it, I did not realize at the time, but a fella named Dick Jones owned it. He'd owned it. It didn't belong to the Stivers. He'd bought it from the Stivers about 2 years earlier. And Dick had 2 daughters, Candy Jones and Janice Jones, who were just a little bit younger than me. I think Candy was in the class of 65, and Janice was 2 or 3 years younger than her, but their daddy owned the lumber company, and they lived in a house up on Ocoee Street where Richard Banks lives now, which is the old Hardwick home. So, it doesn't have a lot of history to it other than the big fire, but anyway, but people that were in Cleveland old enough to remember anything, just about everybody remembers the fire, but nobody could tell me when it was.
You just had to go.
So we had to
hunt it down.
Let's get this call right here.
All right.
Oh,
Well,
sorry.
also,
Call back.
Come back there. If you're looking on the screen, if you're on the internet right now, I have a picture of the Cleveland Hotel up,
Oh, okay.
and the little boy standing in the window is Jeff Day.
That was on our show not too long
that
ago.
was the grandson of the guy who owned
you
it,
can see
which
Chase-
was Carol.
Yes, last name was Carol. You can see Chase Appliance in the reflection of the window, and he has up his most modern Christmas decorations, an aluminum Christmas tree and a big Santa face that lit up. And he told the greatest stories about being the kid of the hotel. I mean, he was everybody's little kid. Now,
He also told some other stories we can't tell, but
it was all fun. It was all
yeah. And now that fire was about 1960-61. The Cleveland Hotel.
I think that year, the picture is 1955, and he's somewhere along there.
somewhere along in
I
there.
was about 6 years old when
Now,
it
the
happened.
Prater Hotel was just up the street up there between
Now,
the First Baptist and First Covenant Presbyterian Church at the corner of Central and Church. It burned, and I've got it here. It burned in
Oh, somebody's calling.
June the 5th, 61.
June the 5th, 1961.
Yeah.
Go ahead, caller. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
This is Jane Sugar Moody. I live in Johnson City, Tennessee.
Hello.
I grew up in Cleveland, and I am a good friend of Jeff Morley.
Well, he's smiling awful big, so I think he's glad you called.
Janie and I are very good friends. Very good friends.
I'm watching you online. You're doing a great job.
Well, help me out here a little bit. Tell us about your daddy's furniture store up there next to when he was next to Dooley's and when he was on Central Avenue and when he was over on Edmonds. Just tell us give us a little history on that.
Okay, well, he started out on Central Avenue right there by Dooley's during the Depression when he and my mother first got married in 1930. And then he prospered and moved uptown to Edmund Street. And then he decided to go over to Central Avenue, right across the street from where you grew up. And I remember working there and all the Cleveland folks coming in and out. And I remember you driving by on Central Avenue in your daddy's big white car. That's about all I remember.
Well, I remember one day I wanted to go to a concert in Chattanooga, and I said, I think I'll get up enough nerve to call Janie Sugar and see if she'll go with me. And she did.
What concert was it?
Oh, gosh. Who was it? Was it Little Stevie Wonder?
It might have been. I
Oh,
forget who
my.
it was. But now tell us about your connection with the Dooley's ice cream up there, Janie.
Right. My mother, Blanche O'Neill, married, or her sister, Beulah O'Neill, married Uncle Bill Dooley. And there were several sisters in that O'Neill family. And my mother's mother, Mama O'Neill, lived right across the street from Dooley's Ice Cream. So when we went to visit my grandmother, we would sit over there and swing and watch everybody go in and out with ice cream cones.
And I remember your grandmother, Miss O'Neill. I remember her. I have remembrances of her. She lived right there across the street, and you had to go up some up some steps to get up to her house.
Right. She was a lovely lady. She wore the first pierced earrings I can remember, but she always had a wad of tobacco in her front lip.
Well, that's all right. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
Those are my memories.
Janie, I think the O'Neill family, weren't there a bunch of girls in that family?
Yes.
That all married prominent men.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know how I've run into them. Maybe when I was doing some Confederate history research, the O'Neills were Confederates too, I believe.
Right. Yeah. There was Mamie, Edith, Aunt Grace, who lived on Centenary Avenue, Aunt Grace Newman, and then Beulah Dooley also lived on Centenary.
And Campbell.
Yeah, Edith Campbell.
Edith Campbell.
Her husband Ben was an electrician there.
They lived on Central Avenue. She always used to say, "What do you say, Jeff? What do you say, Jeff?"
Always had chewing gum in her mouth.
Yeah.
Popping that gum.
What was that? There was a building there right across the street from Dooley's that right next to your grandmother's house that sit down kind of lower than your grandmother. What was in that building? It was a little old brick building that's not...
Well, original, or what I remember, or actually I don't remember, was my Papa O'Neill ran a little grocery store there.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
it closed before I was born in 46.
Okay.
That's all I know about it.
Well, Janie and I were in the same class. Matter of fact, we sat together with at our reunion here a couple of weeks ago, and her very nice husband, Mr. Jim Moody, sat with us, and we had a good time reminiscing. And
We
getting
did.
together, and it was a good reunion. I think it was very successful.
Right. And I love Jeff because he introduced me to my husband.
There you go.
Well, kind of, sort of.
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
Okay, we won't go into that, will we?
We don't need to talk about everything on the radio, do we, Janie?
No, we don't.
Anyway,
Okay, you're a star.
it's always good to hear from you.
And you, Jeff. Love you.
Love you. Bye.
Wonderful.
All right,
I live in
good.
Johnson City.
Up on the screen, if you're on the internet right now, that is the Prater House or Prater Hotel.
Which was basically, that's the
It's a
only picture
boarding,
we've
sort
seen
of a
it.
boarding house.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a-
kind of a boarding house.
It's kind of a boarding house. I asked Phil By Lawson about that house one time, and he laughed and he said, well, he'd go out and party with his buddies drinking on Saturday nights, and then on Sunday morning he'd sit on that porch and watch them go into the First Baptist Church.
Well, you
That
repent
was-
you repent on Sunday. That's what you do, right?
But speaking of Phil By, that I want to tell everybody that the construction on the Greenway up in Charleston has started. And the very first thing that TVA did is they have come in and they have cleaned out, I think it's TVA doing the work, they have cleaned out the cypress grove. And everybody goes, you don't have a cypress grove in Charleston. Well, you just drive up there.
We sure
Sure
do.
do, yeah.
And real close to the Henniger house, looking south, you will see where they put in cypress trees many years ago to prevent flooding in the area, or the help with flooding, I believe. But there's going to be a walkway that's going to malinger down through there from the park all the way down to the boat docks at the river.
And eventually, isn't that going to go into the walking trail
Yes.
all the way in
We hope.
in Cleveland?
We hope. Now, when
That's
when you're in Charleston and you're going north, it's easy because you only have to touch 2 private properties. Everything else is publicly owned. But when you start going south to Cleveland to hook up to the
From
Greenway,
behind the Home Depot.
yeah, you got quite a few pieces of property that everybody's going to have to agree on, and I think that's in the processes, or at least it's in the talking stages. Another thing, if you'd like, I don't know if it's still there. I imagine it still is. I was up at the Brown Farm last week, and they have a whole bunch of tobacco hanging in the sheds if you want your kids to see what tobacco looks like. And then they had a zonkey. That was a mixture between a zebra and a donkey. And it was kind of an odd sight to see a donkey out on a farm a zebra out on a farm in Charleston, but it was there. So you just go to the boat dock and go all the way to the end of that little winding road.
And that's not the lost zebra we had down on the
No,
south
it's
it's
not.
It's a different zebra.
It's a different zebra.
Jeff,
Let's
go ahead.
talk about how many people died in the Cleveland hotel fire.
Well, this article here says it's the worst fire that ever happened in Cleveland. This article here, Cleveland Daily Banner, June the 6th, 1961, which I guess was a day after the fire, said it claimed 3 lives, but I think I read somewhere where a 4th person died as a result of the fire. So I think it was, but they talk about in the article it was the worst fire ever because of the loss of lives. And I don't know what the connection is, but Toby Taylor owned the hotel, and he leased it to this Logan couple that ran it. And I was working for Toby down at 3 Points when the fire happened, and I think I was in the 9th grade, or just got out of the 9th grade. It was in June. I worked for Toby that summer down at 3 Points, and
Who did he lease it to?
well, it was a Logan couple.
Logan.
It's in this article here.
Okay.
I can't tell you just.
My brain went dead. I started writing it, and my brain went dead. So a Logan couple, and I think maybe Mr. Carroll was the manager. Something along
may
that line.
be.
Yeah.
That may be. But
Bill Carroll's brother, right?
he
He did the TV repair, and it's out of that same family. Maybe Jeff's
But
listening.
it doesn't matter.
I know Jeff and his sister listen quite often. Maybe they'll
But
call.
anyway, it was the worst fire, I
In
guess,
Cleveland
still
history.
that we've ever had in Cleveland. When 3 people were,
Yeah.
3 or 4 people lost their lives as a result of the fire.
Jeff, did you ever get to? I mean, you're living right there on the east side. Did you get, across the tracks become what we called 6th Ward? Did you have problems with race relations back in those days, or did everybody get along pretty well?
I don't remember any issues with race relations.
Did you go to the House of the Happy Feet?
I know where it was.
Okay, but
I can't say that I ever went in there, but I knew where it was, and I remember. It was called 6th Ward, and I don't remember. There being any racial problems, but I do remember very well And it's just hard to believe nowadays that, the
How
segregated
segregation.
facilities were. I remember very well at the Princess Theater, you had our African American citizens had to go on one side of the ticket window, and about a third of the balcony upstairs is where they sat. And it's just hard to believe anymore that we had that. And then at Bob's Guff Station, they actually had a separate restroom around and back for African Americans, which they quit using in later years. But when it was built, they had 3 bathrooms, one for men, one for women, and one for African Americans around and back. And it's just hard to believe that we had that in Cleveland. I mean, just a short time ago. It hadn't been that long ago that things are segregated.
Well,
Jeff, I'm a little younger than you, and just 6-7 years later, that had almost disappeared. By the time we got into the time I was in high school, it was almost disappeared. I started high school about 68,
Yeah, sure.
and we'd seen almost all that disappear. Of course, we did go through that big civil rights era.
And that was about when it disappeared there, along about the mid-'60s. And, you just didn't, when I was a little boy, you just didn't think much about it.
That's just the way it was.
That's just the way it was.
Unfortunately.
You just didn't.
What now? Was Bradley High School segregated till while you were there, or did you?
No, I mean they still had College Hill.
So did you have any black players?
No.
Basketball player. I thought Levi or somebody come in there early.
The earliest black player. Well, this guy still lives here in Cleveland. I can't think of his name, but they had a to-do down at the museum one time.
Bradford.
He talked about being the first black football player.
Steve Bradford.
The first black football player on Bradley High School's team. And Tom Johnson has told me he's almost in tears before. He said, I'm going to apologize to this guy over and over and over because the coaches gave him such a hard time because he was black. And he said, I just want to apologize to him over and over. They were on the same team together.
They graduated my freshman year. Steve Bradford, Tom Johnson, and so
Fox, Randy Fox is saying it was in '65.
Yeah, now, but they seem like Levi Scott, one of the Scott brothers, come in and played basketball when Jerry Frazier first got there as a teacher. Would that have been early 63, 64, about the time you were there?
No,
or earlier?
Jerry's
later.
Younger than that. I think Jerry graduated in 66, I think, is when he graduated. I graduated in 64. I think Jerry was in the class of 66 with Mike Renner, Mike Kress, and Randy Fox.
Randy Fox graduated?
Well, let's say he went to
He's
Bradley.
He's a fifth-year senior.
He went to Bradley for 4 yeyears, and so we'll just let it end at that.
Okay.
Judge
He
Fox.
served time.
Yeah.
But there's Easy. What was it? Easy Ready Cafe? Was that it?
Ever Ready Cafe.
Ever Ready Cafe that Vice Mayor Johnson's grandmother ran.
Okay, I
So
remember
they-
that.
Meatloaf sandwich.
I remember
and fried
that.
chicken, and so
They
I
gave
did-
us a great picture of his grandmother standing in her restaurant.
we were talking about the Snack House number 1. Where was it?
Snack House number 1 was down at 5 Points, and that was one of your sort of upscale places to have dinner at night. If you wanted to go out to eat and impress somebody, you could go down to the Snack House number 1 down by. It was right next door to 5 Point Pharmacy. The building's not there anymore, but right backed up to the railroad, and the depot was up on the hill above it. And they had the best strawberry shortcake down there I've ever had, I think. Their strawberry shortcake was wonderful.
The old 5 Points Pharmacy building, of course, is still standing, and it's been such a something that really bothered me is it had this ginormous, big old electrical pole right in the middle of the front door.
Yeah, that's ugly. It's
they
messed it up.
moved it yesterday.
Oh, yesterday.
And it's out to the very end of the building now. I think they're going to hang traffic lights over the intersections, what it looks like. And I'm sure it was done not because it was cosmetically ugly, but because they needed it moved. But I was so excited for the owners of that building. And I understand they're putting in living lofts upstairs and maybe going to put something in downstairs. So that's
Call here.
welcome addition to downtown.
Good morning, caller. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, Ron and Debbie.
Hey, Miss Ella,
Ella.
how are you?
How are you, sister? I looked for you dancing last night at the block party, but I didn't see you.
Well, it was too cold.
Oh, my. Okay.
Even to go out dancing?
Yeah.
I bet you went to Pokey's, though.
Yeah, I'm going to Pokey's tonight.
Oh.
I didn't go yesterday because it was so cold, and I've been a little bit under the weather, so I thought I'd wait till tonight and go.
Too much drinking will do that for you.
No, I've had an upset stomach, and the doctors never did check my blood to see what it was. They just gave me pills.
All right.
All right, Miss Ella, but the band was playing loud last night at the block party, and I stopped and looked, and I told Ron I was looking for Miss Ella, but we didn't see you.
No, I wasn't there.
Okay. Well, thank you, dear. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. I'd like to mention that Jeff has made a map of downtown Cleveland that has from 1957.
Well, let me comment now that
Well,
Tom Cry and Kenneth Kress over at Associated Architecture, they're the ones that put the map together, and they did most of the work on it. I did a little bit of the research, but Tom Cry over there was instrumental in putting that thing
like
together.
3 blocks wide and 5 blocks
Basically,
long.
old downtown Cleveland around the courthouse square.
Where the businesses were.
Right.
And I knew of some of those, and some of those. We'll just read some of those off here. We're going to take a break right now. Let's take this call before we take our mid-morning break. Good morning, caller. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Yeah, Ron, one more thing. I'd like to ask your guest or Deb, where can I get a picture of the old Specs Hospital? I was born there in 1948. I was born.
Well, I'll print you off one, but
We've got one.
Don't expect it to be tomorrow, but I'll get you one.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. All right, folks, we're going to take a little bit of a break here and pay some bills, and we'll be playing Gone Home to friends that have left us this week. And I know that there was a lot of loss this week in our community, and we'll be back with you in just a few minutes.
All right, bye-bye now.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. Whoop FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Are you looking for the best beer and cigarette prices in Bradley County? Well, look no further than Tom's Fuel Mart. That's right, look for the red and yellow signs. 25 feet from the street, 4 locations in Cleveland to serve you. At Tom's Fuel Mart number 4, that's right there near the Cleveland Speedway. You get the best homemade biscuits, sandwiches, and that includes the best fried bologna sandwiches in town. Just ask the Matador. That's right, Tom's Fuel and Mart, where you can find 100% gasoline. That means no ethanol, folks, for your lawnmowers and small engines. Do it. With locations on South Lee Highway, Wildwood, and North Ocoee, Tom's Fuel Mart, with the red and yellow sign 25 feet from the street, is ready to serve you. Yeah!
And check out Tom's new Orbit Express I-75 Paul Huff Parkway.
Check into cash. Turn your car into cash at Check Into Cash.
Get an auto title loan today for up to $2,500.
At Check Into Cash, you get the most for your car, and we make it quick, easy, and confidential.
Stop in for an auto title loan today or a payday advance for up to $425. Call toll-free 877-262-CASH.
Title loan amount determined by value of car and ability to repay. Borrowers often use payday advances over a period of months, which can be expensive. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
Guns, guns, and more guns. That's right, folks. U.S. Money Shops has just received a large shipment of pre-owned Glock 22s, 23s, and the awesome Beretta 8040D Cougar. These guns are law enforcement trade-ins that start at just $379.99 while supplies last. At U.S. Money Shops, there's no shortage of guns, so if you're looking for a great deal on a newer pre-owned gun, then check us out first.
Buy or sell or apply today. The better way at U.S. Money Shops.
Visit usmoneyshops.com for the location nearest you.
If you need a little green, Lending Frog is making deals. He'll lend you cash on any kind of wheels. Borrow just a little, or you can borrow big. Lending Frog is a new financial gig. It's hip to hop into cash. LendingFrog.com is making a splash. Dig it, dig it. Dig it, dig it.
the work here was done. Gone home. They have gone home. Gone home. They have gone home. Life here is lonely since they've gone before. Gone. They have gone home. Gone. They have gone home. The old weeping willow that stands by the door sadly sighs. They have gone home. Gone home. They have gone home. They've joined the heavenly fold. They're walking the streets of pure gold. They left one by one as the work here was done. Gone home. They have gone home. Gone home. They have gone home. They've joined the heavenly fold. They're walking the streets of pure gold. They left one by one as the work here was done. Gone home. They have gone home. Gone home. They have gone home.
That's dedicated to all the people who passed this week here in our community, or your families or friends. They've gone home, and we try to remember everybody every day that someone passes on. Some of our history dies with us, so make sure you preserve that history. You're listening to Old Town Cleveland here on Whoop FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.whoopfm.com. You can call us here at 614-5553 if you're out of town. It's 423-614-5553. We got Jeff Morlock here today. We're talking about the historical downtown area and people and places and things of that nature. They have put together a map. Tom Cry and King Crest and Jeff Morlock have worked on it. I think they're going to try to print these and have them on sale, maybe at the museum. So
we'll let you know when they get printed.
So and because I want one too, I want one that size. So I need one of those big ones. But it's about a 6-block north-south and 3 or 4 block wide east-west look there, and there's stores I haven't seen, and just the locations and things you've heard of, and you get a good perspective of it. If you have any questions, call us here at 614-5553. Something else you said was going on tonight, Deb? I forgot what you told me.
Oh, the Grape Escape. And it's the 3 wineries in Polk County are going to be open, and you can go up from 3 to 8 and see Fro Daddy up at the Ocoee Winery up on 64 Highway.
It's tasting opportunities. It's $25 to visit the 3. You get a complimentary wine glass or a commemorative wine glass, and then there's music at all of them. So that's the day from 3 to 8. If you like rowing, one of the biggest rowing competitions in America is at UTC event.
River.
If it's on the Tennessee River, there's 2,100 rowing boats at Chattanooga today, and there's over 10,000 rowers in there, and you can go down and watch free. Along the river down there where Walnut Street Bridge is a good place. You can stand on it and look that, and then there's vendors down through there, sort of like it'd be at River Bend. You can get all kind of stuff.
Admission is
there admission?
I think it's free.
Oh, I think it is too. Anyway, they were going to start at 10 this morning, and it was a little cool. No, they're going to start at 8.
8:40, and they
changed to 10, and it may start at 12 now. So, and it'll go all day. Every 20 seconds, there's another boat will hit the water. So there's 10,000 rowers from right there. So if you've never seen these rowing events, it's something free you can go see today. And that's all I know. If you have other events, the Tennessee ball game, we understand. We had questions about that. 7:30, is that right? 7:30.
It's an evening game.
7 o'clock, I think.
Yeah, it's an evening game. I don't know what channel it's on, so maybe someone will tell us. We got Jeff Morlock here. Jeff, you were telling us an interesting thing during the break here about lady you went and visited one time that was about 100 years old. Tell us that story.
Well, when I was about 10, and this lady was about 100. She was a black lady, and I remember where the house was, and I just cannot. I know her name, but I can't think of it. But my Uncle John took me. He wanted me to meet her. She was born in Bradley County in the late 1850s, and she was born into slavery. So not too many folks our age can say we've met somebody who was actually a slave.
And she actually talked about her life as a slave, or just
she talked about, well,
what did she say? The kind of things
I just met her, and
right.
What I remember, it just made an impression on me. And then about a few days later, there was an article in the Banner about one of these personality profiles.
Mm-hmm.
This was about 56, and it talked about her growing up in Cleveland and selling corn pone in Cleveland during the Civil War.
Oh, my goodness.
And she was she lived a large part of her life in Cleveland. Some of the older folks over in the African-American community remember her.
I'm sure.
But it just made an impression on me that I hadn't forgotten it. But
I'll have to investigate that.
Another thing I remember about her, when our church, I've gone to the First Covenant Presbyterian Church all my life, and our church fell in 1954.
Mm-hmm.
When they were constructing a basement underneath it, and the church was just built in the 1850s, fell in, and we had to borrow some money from to rebuild, and we didn't have a deed to the property, so we had to get some certifications that the church had owned this property all these years, and one of the certifications was from this lady who, she said, I remembered attending church there at the First Covenant Presbyterian when I was during the Civil War. And it just made an impression on me meeting this lady, the fact she'd been a slave, and I'd actually met her, and she was about 100 and I was about 10 when
that is amazing.
When we met, and I'll think of her name in a minute. If not, I'll get it for you. But
you'll be in CVS tonight, standing in line, and you'll shout her name out. They'll come to you.
When I'm in the shower. That's usually when I remember stuff. But I've got that article from the Banner. This history teacher out of Cleveland State asked me about it, and I got him a copy of it.
Brian Reed.
Yeah, Brian Reed, and I can't.
He has done more African American history work in Bradley County than anybody, and he's really documenting things.
The old house where she lived is gone now, but this black gentleman has a barber shop on that corner now over and it's right catty corner. It's over there just down from College Hill, old College Hill School, on whatever that street is on. Anyway, it's I remember where it was, but I don't know how long the house has been gone. But that just made an impression on me.
That's very. I'll have to ask Brian who that is.
He'll know.
He'll know. Oh, he doesn't forget anything.
Yeah.
I'm going to read off one of these blocks for you.
Okay.
Now, think about Stampers, the block that Stampers in now. Over on the west side, the southwest corner was Dobson and Company, followed by Grabbers. I think this is one of the pictures on that file run.
Yeah.
Singer Sewing Machine, then Stampers Hardware, then Horner's. Now, we decided Horner's Jewelry. Of course, then it turned into the Eye Doctor place. It's basically been in that same place forever.
As far as I know, they've been there since about 1880. I think Mr. Horner, the current optometrist, is I think maybe his great-grandfather's the one that started that business. And, they've got a picture hanging on the wall in there. I'm sure y'all got a copy of it, of the old courthouse that was torn down in the 1890s, of it being torn down.
Yes.
And
but they're taking the steeple off of it. It's the only picture I've ever seen of it.
And it's hanging on the wall in there now. Where Grabbers or whatever it's called.
Oh, okay, Grabbers. That sounds better.
I think I asked Joe Stamper one day. I did ask him. I said, when did y'all take that over? And he said he thought it was about 74.
Yeah.
But before Grabbers was in there, it was Penny's.
Oh.
And you can go out there and you kind of go in a little, I don't know what you call it, covered alcove, and there's looks like a painted over strip there about a foot wide and about yay long that's painted over. It doesn't match the tile, and it used to say pennies in that little that little thing.
Come off. Yeah.
And but pennies moved from there up to where the Lee College new building is now, about 1954. That's about when they moved up there, right around 54.
Now, what was that first building you named Fort Gravers?
Dobson and Company.
What was Dobson's?
I don't remember much about Dobson's.
I saw the pictures before, but I don't know either.
Yeah, I've seen it too.
That was originally the Roberts building. It's built in the early 1900s.
Roberts or Ramsey?
Ramsey building.
Ramsey. Yeah,
there's
you're
a
right.
sign up there that says
Mr. Roberts had a store in there.
No, I remember because it says Ramsey on top of it.
That Ramsey, that was built way back in 1800s.
I believe
I would think so, yeah.
Because they're showing a ladder on a fire truck in 1911, and you can see that building quite clearly.
And Mr. Stamper, if you're listening, you need to come on and do our show.
Yes.
We can't get him to come down here. So
Well,
just don't embarrass him on
Joe
there.
be a good one because, he showed me one time upstairs in that building where, Dr. So-and-so had an office, and here was his oxygen thing and everything hanging on the wall. It's a real interesting old building.
Mm-hmm. So you had Fikes Furniture.
And then you had Fikes Funeral Home.
Fikes Funeral Home was over on the block where Broad Street United Methodist
before
Church
that, they were over there. Jimmy Logan's in there now, the Logan Law Firm, but on the east side was Fike Funeral Home.
Yes.
And on the west side was Fike Furniture Store, in there where Jimmy Logan is. And then they moved down there where Broad Street Church is now.
Was that the same Fikes?
Same.
Yes.
Okay,
Same,
figured it was,
family.
yeah.
Same
They've
family.
been in the business for a long time now. Moore's Pharmacy, of course, was on the corner in
Moore's
the People's
Pharmacy
Bank
was
building.
on the corner, right.
Akoi She, was that a repair shop?
It was a repair shop, yeah. I have vague memories of that.
Mm-hmm. Mary Ann.
I don't remember much about Mary Ann.
Okay. Sanitary Market.
Sanitary Food Liner was a Norman Spurlick ran the Sanitary Food Liner. It's just a little.
It looks like a little tiny strip.
Little grocery store. They had a meat market, and back in those days, you had a little family grocery store on every corner. Every neighborhood had.
There was no Walmart.
There was no Wally World and no Kroger or no Publix. You had little family grocery stores.
Where you signed your name and came back later and paid them.
Yeah.
Park Belts Department Store, which would be straight across from St. Luke's. I remember Harshbarger and Stratton being there.
Well, Parks Belts was there before. They moved down to Village. 1970, something like that. One of the deals was when they moved down to the Village, down there where that ice cream place is now at the Village, used to be a cleaners in there. There was a big hill there.
Yeah, we've heard that.
And up on top of that hill before they built the Village is where the American Legion was.
We've heard that story.
And Skin Anderson, who was a postmaster, had a house up there. But anyway,
I've never seen a picture of it, though.
Well, I'm not sure I have either, but I just remember it.
Yeah.
But part of the deal was when Parks Belks moved down to the Village, they'd do away with that hill. So they did.
And I kind of suspect that's one of the reasons that I've been hunting for a picture of it. It may have been some kind of mound, or it could have been where they cleaned out the creek. I don't know. But we've had more than one person tell us their daddy would take them to the drive-in movies, and they'd leave them in the car and go over to visit the Legion on top of the hill.
Well, before the Village was built down there was a drive-in down there called the Colonial Drive-In.
Yes.
And before that, they used to use that lot. They'd have circuses down there on that lot. I just barely remember that.
I remember we had, I believe it was Doe's stepfather, Mr. Green, that came in.
Yeah.
He said as a little boy he would see the
Carl
trains.
Green,
the trains would come in and the soldiers would get off to practice maneuvers or whatever, and they would be down on this lot doing their maneuvers.
Mr. Green Jeans. I always called him Mr. Green Jeans.
What I remember the most about Mr. Carl there was that his football coach was Jimmy Lovell. The fields are named after Jimmy Lovell.
You had to see Ron's face when Ron says, well, who was your football coach? Well, Jimmy Lovell. And then he sat there and told us all about him, and we were just in shock.
That's the first person I'd ever met who had actually played for Jimmy Lovell.
Yeah.
So.
Mel's Restaurant. across from St. Luke's.
Mel's restaurant was run by the brother of Mel was a brother of the guy that ran the Grand Lunch.
Okay.
And he had two sons. One of them was the city street superintendent here for a while. Anyway, Mel had a restaurant there, and we used to go up there from Arnold School and eat lunch. You could get a big old plate full of French fries for $0.25. And Fat Schultz has a
wig shop
in there now in that same building. But before they call that the Brown Building. Before that was built, it was a parking lot there for BB Food Store, which was uptown.
Wow.
And on the corner, right on the very corner, was a little old trailer they call the Silver Diner.
Well, I've seen pictures of it, but I didn't know where it was.
And then they moved it after they built that building. They moved the Silver Diner down there on Central Avenue right behind the Prater Hotel.
Okay.
You had the Prater Hotel, then you had the Silver Diner right out on the street, and then right south of that was Ledford Machine, and after Ledford Machine moved down on South Lee Highway, Dana North Sign Company was in there. Mm-hmm. When I was in high school, it was Dana North. I ran around with him some. I called him Brownlow. They had a sign shop in there, Mr. North and his oldest brother.
Foxy's telling us Ronnie and Donnie Osmond.
Ronnie and Donnie.
That belonged to Mel's restaurant.
They were Mel's boys.
Now, didn't Randy's mom work in that Silver Diner? She worked at one of those.
I don't know, but that explains a lot because I have a picture of it, and I'm looking at it going, that's not behind the old jail, like people have told me. Now that explains where it was in 1957.
Dana North's grandson, I grew up with him, and I played in the sign junkyard every day.
Okay, Kent's Photos. Do you know? Then the next shop was a personal card shop.
I just
remember.
Vaguely remember that.
Acme Barbershop.
I remember Acme Barbershop because I used to go in there and get my hair cut after, and they were there up till, I don't know, about 1980 or something. They were there for a long time.
Kitty Corner.
Kitty Corner was a little old, I just barely remember it.
That would be obviously where you don't buy kids clothes.
Right.
Now coming south on Broad Street, you have Stanfield Studios.
Stanfield Studios.
I would love to know when they shut down who got all those pictures from Stanfield's.
I'm thinking that they had a fire and lost a lot of that. Jim Price used to work for him.
Okay, I'll ask Jim. Let's get this caller.
Good morning, caller. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning. This is Sharon Harper.
Hey, Sharon, what's up?
I was just wondering, do you know where the house was that was the American Legion, where it's sitting now?
Oh, no. I thought they tore it down.
It's across from a nursing home. Daryl,
Daryl Hooper.
Hooper lived in it. It's up for sale right now. They moved that. It was the first house I'd ever seen moved.
Really? I never heard that before. That's interesting.
That's exactly right. That's where it was. And you were talking about Mel's restaurant. Mel Osmond.
Yes.
Had Ronnie and Donnie Osmond. They were my year ahead of me in high school. Their daddy and my mother-in-law died. My mother-in-law died the day after Christmas, 1968. There was 4 people in Bradley County died with Hong Kong flu.
Oh, didn't know that, Sharon.
My mother-in-law, I never will forget, we went out to her house, and she said, don't y'all come in here. Said, I got a bad cough. It was on Christmas Eve. And Christmas morning, Joe's dad called and said that she was in the hospital, and by the time he got up there, she was in real bad shape. They said she never ran a fever, never tried to fight the germ or anything. But there was 4 people, 3 men and her. 1968 died with Hong Kong flu.
Miss Wade.
Hey.
Miss Wade, yes. Sharon, tell everybody about your family being up on North Lee Highway.
So Lane and North Lee, Harpo Edition.
I was talking about didn't they run a service station?
They did, right on the corner of, it was Bradley Street and North Lee Highway at the time. Oh, damn.
Something got your dog excited.
Yeah, the doorbell. The yard sale. So. No, Mother and Daddy moved from Detroit, Michigan down here and bought that corner right there from the Eldridges. And there was another party, too, I can't remember right now. But built the gas station and the grocery store, and we lived in the back of it till he built the brick house that sits down there in the valley.
Yes.
But he sold it to Gene Calloway.
Uh-huh.
and Gene Calloway leased it to Stuckey's.
Stuckey's, yeah, I remember when Stuckey's was out there. Okay.
It was Harpo's Festival before that. And then we moved down to the high school, and we had Harpo's Motel. And there's not many people remember it at all. You were talking about the Prater's boarding house?
Yes.
Well, Daddy bought it from Mr. Jones. I don't know if Jeff remembers Don Jones. His daddy was a preacher, Preacher Jones, South Cleveland Church of God. And it was just a little building back there, and he made it into a motel, had 6 units. And then we had 2 bedrooms up in the big brick house that's Jimmy's Flowers now. And Mother rented out every room we had during the assembly, and me and her would sleep on the back porch, and Daddy was a deputy. He'd sleep at jail. But
Sharon has given us some great pictures over the years here at Old Town that we've shared with everybody. Well, Sharon, thank you so much for calling, dear.
Okay, well, I was
Go ahead.
And the one that was where Prestwood Antiques is, and then Jesse Ruth and Carl Ramsey had one at the 56 and North Lee Highway.
Yeah, I remember that one that Miss Ramsey had out there. I mean, that building's still there, isn't it?
The building that
Miss Ramsey had, isn't it still there?
No, she tore it down.
Oh.
Built that little one there.
Okay.
It was a long, slim block building.
Yeah, okay.
But what her mother and Miss Prater, they'd all get on the phone, and if one was full, because, you know, it was a long ride from Tasso Lane to front of the high school and on Highway 11, and so if they'd swap, you know, have you got a room? I've got some people I'm going to send to you, and they'd do that so they'd fill up every night.
There was one down behind Jimmy's Flowers, too, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm about. The house I grew up
Okay.
in, and there was Harpo's Motel there.
Okay.
And then in the 60s, Daddy made them into apartments.
Yes, they're still apartments today.
Yeah, George Poe, he tried to buy it off of Mother, and at the time she didn't want to sell it because Daddy had just died, and then George, I think he bought it from the Hearns family. That Mother sold it to. But then, of course, we lived, Daddy had his business right up on the hill from where Jeff grew up. And my husband grew up right back in behind where Jeff lived.
Now, did your daddy, now my father-in-law owned that Exxon distributorships. He and another guy owned it in sometime in the 50s. Murray, yeah, Carl Murray.
Yeah. Daddy bought out Murray.
Okay.
Then he bought out Kofer.
Okay, yeah, Kofer. Yeah, that was his partner, Kofer.
And he had gas stations and the distributorship.
Yeah, there was a gas station there right next, just east of the distributorship.
Yep.
And then Otto Hoffer lived just on the other side of that gas station.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting called, Dad. I got to go do a yard sale.
All right,
see you,
Bye-bye.
Sharon. Good to talk to you.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you. You can call us here at 614-5553. If you have any comments or any knowledge about downtown Cleveland and your memories of that, we got Jeff Morlock here today talking about the area down there. He's been working on a map of downtown, grew up in the downtown area, down on Central Avenue, just before you got to the railroad tracks on the left, right?
But he's
correct.
He wants to say that he's been helping with this map. There's other people that.
Ken Kress and Tom Cry, some really good friends of mine.
Teenage Shop. I remember going there in the early 70s.
Well, Ladies and Teenage Shop, that was run by Miss Heineman, and she went to our church, and she had a granddaughter named Bunny that was, I think Bunny was either 1 year or 2 years behind me at Bradley, but Miss Hyman ran that, and then Mel's Restaurant moved around there next door to her after he left on Central Avenue. He moved around there where that Mexican restaurant is now.
And it later became Earl's?
After Mel's it was Earl's, and then that Mexican restaurant. Gardner's is where the teenage shop was.
Teenage shop, right in
there.
there.
But before that, those two sections, and you can see that on the map there.
There's 3 skinny buildings facing Broad Street.
Let's get this call here.
All right, go ahead.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hey, good morning, Ron. I'm enjoying your show. Jeff, you're doing a great job. Listen, the house you're talking about, W.P. Hope moved it on Bells Road across from a nursing home.
Okay, right. W.P. Hope made it.
And he moved out over there for his, he lived there a while, and then he had a son, J.B. Hope.
Yeah.
And he lived there till he died.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds great. Thank you for letting us know that.
That's Hoyt Clark, by the way.
Yeah, let's say it sounds like.
Hoyt, he's got a. Tell us about that record shop, Hoyt, there where BB Food Store was. I didn't remember that. Oh, he left us.
Oh, he left us.
Okay.
I was going to say, are we going to believe anything Hoyt said now? Wait a minute.
Now, the Gene's record shop, is that the one you
Hoyt knew all about
Hoyt
that.
will call us back. I was wondering if that was Gene Woods.
I think it was.
It probably
Hoyt was
was
telling me
Gene
all
Woods,
about
yeah.
him, and I didn't remember that at all. But before that was where BB Food Store had an uptown store there.
Call us back there, Hoyt.
And they Catlett Law and Jake Green worked up there at BB Food Store, and then when they shut that down, they moved down to 3 Points to work in BB. I'm trying to think now. Jake came down there, but did Catlett come down there then, or did he go to work at Superior? Anyway, they both worked for. I'm getting it confused. Jake worked out at MC Hedrick's out on Wildwood, Dalton Pike for a while, but anyway, BB Food Store was up there where the record shop and the teenage lady before that, and then upstairs above that's where Dr. McCulley, who was a long-time dentist here in town, he had an office upstairs, and Bro Prince had a law practice upstairs there, and Duff's beauty shop, Davy Duff's still running it. They had a place upstairs there above Gene's record mart
now,
on that map.
a couple of places here I see that it says upstairs, but most of it doesn't, so that's probably a whole nother map.
Dev, here's another call. Go ahead, call. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Ron, that was Gene Woods' record shop up there.
That's right, yes.
Gene was very active in that country music and making records and all kinds of stuff. That's Gene's father.
That's right.
And BB Food Store is where the old Brown building there is. It was Bethel Brown, if you recall. And they built that big building there. It used to be a parking lot there for BB Food Store.
Yeah, and they had a Silver Diner, a little trailer on the corner called the Silver Diner.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yes, sir, buddy.
Isn't it fun when you remember something you hadn't thought of in a long time?
Was the Big Apple already gone?
Grew up there all my life. Do what?
There's a store called the Big Apple up in town there. Was it already gone when you guys?
No, I remember the Big Apple.
Big Apple was
Big Apple Food Store.
It's on the map
it's
there.
It's at Inman and Broad Street.
Well, it's where Jess Cook started Cook's Food Store down there later on.
Yeah, he moved it from where Bank of Cleveland is now. He moved it down there to where the Big Apple was, and later on, I'm not sure what year.
I'm not either, Jeff, but I do remember Bobby Chase managed that Big Apple.
Okay, I didn't remember that, but I remember the Big Apple very well.
Do you remember Callaway Grocery?
Oh, Lord, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's at North Ocoee and Central.
Yes. It's right there in the middle of that block.
Right next to Appler's, according to this map. 1957.
It was on the corner of Central Avenue and Ocoee Street.
Yeah, that's right.
Was it Gene Callaway?
No, it was Luke Callaway. Luke Callaway ran it, and Henry Evans was the butcher.
He sure was. That's right.
And he could make the best chicken salad and pimento cheese. I mean, he'd have it all fixed up, and they just homemade pimento cheese, chicken salad, all that kind of stuff. It was a delicatessen. It was a fancy food store.
Oh, it sure was.
And you'd walk in the door, and right on the left as you walked in, they'd have a stalk of bananas. Back when bananas used to come on a stalk, they'd hang them from the ceiling, and you'd get them. They'd have them hanging there on the left, and in the summertime and in the spring, you couldn't walk by on the sidewalk. He'd have grapes and apples and everything under the sun out on the sidewalk.
His own produce.
Yeah, right out on the sidewalk.
Yeah, he did.
And he just had one little old bitty checkout counter in there, and he delivered what was that guy's name? It was their delivery boy. I can't remember it, but he worked for Moore's Pharmacy after that, delivering for them.
I have a 1940s picture that was made right in there on Central Avenue, and you can see what later became Harshbarger Stratton's. But on the side of Callaway Grocery there's an advertisement about Phil R. Lake and swimming. That's quite visible from there.
Yeah,
and they also had parking meters all up and down the
yeah,
streets.
they did. Oh, you had parking meters.
Everywhere, yeah.
All uptown, you had to pay to park.
Yeah, you sure did.
And the merchants didn't like that because they thought it'd drive customers away if you had to pay to park, so they quit doing that. I don't know when they quit.
What about time the village opened?
Probably
Yes.
about the time the village opened. I'm not sure, but
Who ran Thomas Hill's store down on North of Coy Street?
It was Sam,
Bledsoe, Sam Bledsoe.
Carl. It was Sam Bledsoe. That's
Yeah, I remember
I think Willie Gregg worked there for
Willie
a
Gregg worked there for years.
ever.
Yeah, Willie worked there for a long time.
Ladies department, yeah.
Yeah.
What about Sturchie's?
Dutchy Brothers was on down the street toward Inman Street.
Yeah.
In the block where C.J. Wilson's
Didn't,
was.
yeah.
Bob White ran
Bob
that.
White was part of that, yeah.
Bob and Omar Plank was the jewelry.
That's right. Omar Plank.
That's right.
Now, did
Yeah.
you guys ever go to the Bohemia?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Oh yeah.
tell me about that.
Bohemia.
Yeah.
I remember going down there when I went to Arnold School. My daddy picked me up at school and dropped me off at the Bohemia to watch Johnny Mac Brown movies, and then I'd walk home. It cost 15 cents to get into Bohemia, but if you went to the Princess, it was a quarter.
Oh yeah.
Well, now we heard the Rats were pretty big at the Bohemia, though.
They used to call it the Rat Hole, but I don't remember any rats, but
I don't remember any rats either yet, but they did make they called it that.
they call it the Rat Hole. But I guess because all that popcorn got spilled on the floor, and I guess the rats came in and ate it. But, right after they closed, about 54, Joe Bell's mom and dad opened up a store there, and they called it Lawson's.
Lawson.
And that was Joe Bell's mom and dad, and he said, well, they called it Lawson's because it was a better known name around Cleveland than Bell's would have been, so that's why they called it Lawson's. I remember asking him why you call it Lawson's, and that's what he said.
Pretty smart on Mr. Bell.
Yeah, they ran that for years, and it was kind of a ladies' clothing store.
What about the Southern Shoe Store? I'm seeing it on First Street, in between Church and North of Coy Street. Do you guys remember the Southern Shoe Store? I remember the name.
I don't remember a whole lot about the Southern Shoe Store.
It's next door to Hicks Electric.
Yeah, it's back around there where, what would be there now? Is that Joe V. Williams building or?
It's across.
Building there. What was Glenn Moore's? You remember?
It's across from the Hardwick stores that burned.
I
don't know.
I vaguely remember it, but I don't remember much about the
What
Southern
about
Shoe.
Lay's 5 and 10? I mean, I think that was the best smelling popcorn in the world.
Yes, that's true. And they were up there on Broad and would be, I guess, second.
Coy and first.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, go in first.
Yeah.
Yes, that was Ed Lay's family.
Yeah.
I thought it was the greatest thing to do to go on the First Street side and go down
the basement
and come in.
Yeah.
I thought that was the coolest thing in the world.
They had a full basement of stuff to sell down there.
Do you guys remember Cole Hayes's blacksmith shop being downtown?
Hayes Cole.
Okay.
Hayes Cole.
I sit here and thought about it, and you heard me pause, and then I said it wrong after all.
Yeah, he was David Mills. He took care of all of David's horses. Oh, Lord, as long as David lived.
Mm-hmm. That family's going to be on our show in December to talk about
That'd be
him.
it. Now, he had
Right there.
He had a daughter named Betty Cole that I went to school with at Arnold School.
We were in class with her.
Betty Cole, and then he had another son that drove
now Betty McAllister.
He had another son that drove a car carrier for Coon Dog for years, and then when he died, they hauled his casket on that truck.
Yeah, he died. Then he was in a crash down in Florida.
Well, when he died, they put his casket on that car carrier and hauled it to the cemetery. Yeah, they had a picture of it in the paper, I think. I never did know him, but he hauled cars for years to Florida for Coon Dog Burke, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And
Burke, yeah.
yeah, and
well, Hoyt, something that I know you sent me a message saying is we need to talk about the the early days of the ambulance service. We know we've talked.
yeah.
We talked a couple of weeks ago about just before it happened when the funeral homes had all the ambulances. But I know your dad was involved in those very first ambulances. Your dad, Fred.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dad, that was back in 1972.
Yeah. Well, Hoyt, thanks for calling in. That's all we got. And you're going to have to come in and talk about. You're going to have to come in and talk about your dad in those early ambulance days.
Yeah, okay, guys. Listen, I'm enjoying your show.
Thank you, Hoyt.
I love to hear Hoyt laugh.
Hoyt worked with my dad down at Stoney Supermarket when he was younger.
Oh, he did?
Yep, and my dad was the butcher down there.
Well, Hoyt, you need to get him on here because he's got a lot of knowledge of. See, he remembered that Gene's record shop.
Oh.
I didn't know a thing about. I don't remember that at all.
But I miss you guys talked about that homemade chicken salad and homemade pimento cheese, and there was nothing like that homemade pimento cheese you got out of those stores.
Oh,
my dad used to make it and bring home. Then he used to make it at home. And my poor wife here, when we first met, my dad made pimento cheese at home. She says, "You can't make that at home. You got to buy it in a store."
Yeah, I know. I'd never seen anybody
Well,
make.
it was totally different though.
Jeff, I live so far out in the country. Going out to eat at our house meant you took the watermelon outside. You
Yeah.
never ate watermelon in the house.
Yeah, that Callaway's grocery was. I'm trying to think what you'd compare that to nowadays. I mean, he had a reputation of having the finest meats, the finest dairy products, the finest vegetables.
I know in the 60s yearbooks, they'd have pictures of the inside of the store.
It was Luke Callaway ran. Now, I think Luke's father started the store, who had been Gene and Luke and all their I think, now I may have this wrong, but Mike would know more about that. But anyway, Luke ran the store, and Henry Evans was a butcher. Patty Evans was in my class, and her brother Henry Evans Jr. worked there too, and Lloyd Hamilton worked there for years. He later on bought out Mr. Callaway, the Callaway family, and Beck was the driver, the delivery man. Beck, I don't know what his other name was, but he was the delivery man, and Luke's son Ben, who's now back here around Cleveland, he worked there some. Then later on, he went to work at American Uniform over in Italy, and but you'd come by there in the summertime or in the spring. They'd have grapes and all kind of seasonal fruits and vegetables out on. So you'd hardly get by there. There'd be some. He'd have them on both sides of the sidewalk. You'd walk through there, and Luke would go down to the farmers market in Chattanooga real early and buy the produce, and a lot of it came from there. But they just had one checkout stand in there, and a lot of people bought their groceries, had them delivered.
Mm-hmm.
And
Jeff, I know
the funny story I always tell about Ron's dad is he was delivering groceries, I don't know for whom, and he had a whole basket full of groceries, and some pretty girl was walking down the sidewalk, and he was, taking a long glance at her, and somebody opened a car door, and he hit the car door and about wiped him out.
on his bike. Jeff, you talk about those butchers and everything is, you used to be able to go in there and they pull out this huge block of bologna. Or bologna, we call it.
Bologna.
This is good because it's aged for a long time in that cooler, and they slice it off and wrap it up in that white paper.
They take that red.
Now that bologna is a lot better than anything you get
so
today.
how much you want, how many slices you want, and how thick you want it.
Oh,
and
you want
wrap it up in paper.
Which reminds me, I went up to Reliance the other day to Webb's store. Took a friend of mine from Oklahoma. She wanted to see where her family came from, and they'd come from that area of the Hiwassee River, so I took her up there. But it was so funny when I first got there. I thought, well, what cute decorations. There was this old pickup truck sitting by the pumps, and one of the headlights was missing, and it was an old flatbed truck, and I thought, what great decorations. And then some guy came out of the store and got in it and drove off. Let's talk Central Avenue, facing Broad Street. United Methodist Church. Of course, we had Bob's Gulf. Bob's Gulf was there forever.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, you can find pictures from the 20s that Bob's Gulf refinery was there.
Yeah.
Behind that, where the block where Joe Rogers Office Supply, I think, takes up all the stores now.
Does now.
Toby's Food Mart. Who ran that?
Toby Taylor.
Toby Taylor.
Toby Taylor was, and Howard Gregg was a butcher there at one time. Elmer, trying to think what Elmer's name was. He was kind of Toby's manager because I got to know him down at 3 Points. And but Toby ran that, and then they had a fire there. And about 60, and Toby moved. He bought out Mr. Bethel Brown and moved down to 3 Points, and that was Toby's till he opened up Tip Top Food Town, and then he sold what was what he had left down at 3 Points. He sold that to Elmer and his brother, and they ran it for a while, and then various people ran it till it shut down. But Toby went out and opened up Tip Top Food Town, which was that TT was Toby Taylor, and they ran it for I don't know how long.
I believe his wife may still be.
No, she's not.
Maybe it's the daughter.
Her
Elmer Boring.
Elmer Boring, and
well, anyway, Dawn Hat Shop. I don't remember Hat Shop being there. Kay Daniel, which is Jeff Day's aunt or mother or someone, was a photographer. Had a photography studio there. Go ahead.
And I'm pretty sure that's where Coppinger started out there too. I think he was either an offspin of that, or he had a little photography shop there, and that's where the Coppinger brothers got started in the photography business.
Let's take this call here. Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland. Go ahead, caller.
Good morning. Push the button again.
Are you there?
I hear them. Whoop, they hung up on us.
Try it again, caller. 614-5553. We're talking to Jeff Morlock here on Old Town Cleveland on Whoop FM 99.9. We got about 15 more minutes, so if you need to get your calls in, do it now.
Okay,
614-5553.
The building that's at Worth and Central was Dr. Hines upstairs.
He was upstairs. And before that, he built that building.
Oh.
And before that, I'm pretty sure he did, he was upstairs, and the Cleveland City Schools central office used to be up there. Miss Stratton was the secretary, and Mr. Bowers was the school superintendent. They had a little office up there. 2 people ran the whole Cleveland City school system. Now they got a place as big as a village out there.
Maybe those was the good old days. Hey, let's get this caller. Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, Ron, Debbie, and Jeff. This is Doyle Palmer.
Hey, Doyle.
Doyle, how are you?
Enjoying your show today. A couple of tidbits there. Callaway Grocery was a gourmet store.
Gourmet, definitely.
I worked at Cook's Food Store when I was junior and senior in high school, and both stores did a telephone business, and people would call in to Cook's, and they would order something that they didn't have, so they would send me up to Callaway's to get that item and bring it back to Cook's. But those guys worked together. There was a coalition of them, we'll say, that they were pretty strong. Although they were competitors, they still worked together. And I think they probably kept Big Apple from being a success and ran them out of town. But anyway, that's another subject. I wanted to go back and mention, you talked about the integration at Bradley.
Yes, sir.
I believe that Nathan Westfield and Moses Moore were probably the 2 earliest people to be students at Bradley, and that was actually before they closed College Hill. And then Terry Scott was probably the first basketball player.
What year would that have been, Doyle? That was sometime after 64, because I graduated in 64.
It's somewhere around 65.
Yeah.
I believe, 65, 66.
Yeah.
And then later on, there was 4 of the Scotts. There was Terry, Levi, Gloria, and Alvin. And they all played basketball at Bradley. Really outstanding students. And Terry went to Oral Roberts, and he actually stayed out in that area and was a high school basketball coach. And, of course, Levi stayed local, and he worked locally. Gloria, she went to UT, and I think she probably got married and still lives there. And Alvin stayed in Phoenix after he played with the Phoenix Suns. And but anyway, Nathan and Moses both had children that later went to Bradley and graduated. Nathan had a son, Jeffrey, and had 2 daughters. Yolanda and Demetri, I believe, that played for Coach Smitty at Bradley, and then his younger son, I think, went to McCauley. But anyway, enjoying your show, and there's lots of history out there.
Hal, let me ask you one more question. When you worked over at Cook's, was Joe Talley the delivery man?
Joe Talley was the delivery man, and my first experience being associated with a black person was Charlie Walton, worked at Cook's Food Store. And Joe drove the delivery truck.
Mm-hmm.
And at Thanksgiving and Christmas, when they had a lot of orders, they would let me ride with Joe and help him carry those groceries into the different houses around the town where they delivered them to. But Charlie worked there, and that was back when they had the meat market in the back.
Yeah.
And you could go back, and they had 3 or 4 guys working behind the counter, and you could order 4 pork chops.
Whatever you wanted, they'd cut it for you.
Whatever you wanted, they cut it. And Carl Harmon was their main butcher.
Yeah.
During the time I was working there, and he worked for them a long time. But wonderful people, had a lot of good memories.
Yeah, they're wonderful people. Yeah, Joe ran after he ran for circuit court clerk and won and stayed on that job for years after he worked at Cook's.
Wasn't they C.L. Jordan that worked in down at Cook's or somewhere around there?
Who?
Mr. Jordan. C.L. Jordan, I think, was the name.
Well, that name doesn't ring a bell. I don't think he worked there when I did.
Okay, he worked somewhere around one of those. May not have been Cook's, may have been one of the others.
It could have been.
Mr. Harmon, I remember that name. That's a name I knew very well.
Yes, but J.D. Cook and Carl Cook, the 2 brothers, were basically running the business when I worked there. Mr. Cook would come in, and he would always be dressed up, and he was there, and his wife was one of the people that worked on the telephone. Mrs. Cook and a Mrs. Rice and Mrs. Highsinger, I believe, were the 3 people that took telephone orders because they had a big business over the telephone. And they had the counter up at the front, and they had just regular adding machines, and those guys would add people's groceries up, and then you'd give them the money, and they had one cash register there that they would transact the business out of.
So when you delivered the groceries, did they just sign for them, or did they pay you at that time, Doyle, or both?
Well, basically, those people were just doing maybe a credit business with Cooks, and would go in and pay their bill at the end of the week or once a month. I don't know exactly how that came down. But no, we didn't collect any money.
Okay.
We just took them. We had these big tin trays.
Big tin trays, yeah.
They packed them in, and back there on the back side of Cook's, there was a door, and Joe would back the delivery vehicle up there, and we'd shove them out and load it, and he stayed busy from opening till closing. And but I really enjoyed my time working there as a high school guy. And
what year did you graduate from high school?
I graduated from Bradley in 1957.
57, okay.
Class 57.
Okay.
And Ron, let me mention one thing before we get off.
Go ahead.
And I think you were supposed to buy a ticket ahead of time, but the East Cleveland folks are having a little reunion down at Bradley High School tonight. It's 6 o'clock. They're in the cafeteria, so there might be a handful of people that would just like to drive by there and go in and visit with them.
I didn't find out about that until after last Saturday's show, or we would have certainly have announced it. I put it on Facebook as soon as I saw it.
I think Mr. John Cook was an East Cleveland graduate.
Yeah, they'll have a lot of stories to tell, and a lot of good memories.
Well, thank you, Doyle, so much.
Okay, thank
Bye-bye.
y'all.
I tell you,
I always say it. I love our callers.
the Scott family. I know Levi's still here. I'd love to have Levi and Terry and Alvin and Gloria to come in and do our show. If they happen to be coming in around Christmas time, we just got to get it planned early. And so, if
The
anybody
last
knows
time they
Levi,
were in town,
we
we
would love to have them
we
here.
couldn't get it done.
Because go ahead and call your live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hey, Ron, this is Jeff Kelly with 2x2 Quartet. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Jeff?
Doing fantastic. I was wondering if we could make a quick announcement about a gospel singing we're going to be having tonight.
You sure can.
Okay, we're going to be doing a benefit for Hannah Evans, and it's going to be at Parkview Elementary School. Starts at 6 p.m. It's going to feature the groups Recognize from here in Cleveland, Mercy's Call from here in Cleveland, and 2x2 Quartet. And Pastor Green is going to be there with us from Kendra Road Church of God, and we're just looking for a good turnout. And if anybody's looking for something to do on this cold day, they can come to that warm school and listen to some good Southern gospel music.
Tell us what time again.
It's at 6 o'clock tonight.
All right.
And that's to benefit the daughter of Perk Evans, who unfortunately passed away. And what time does it start?
6 o'clock.
6 p.m.
Sounds good.
Now,
Thank you for
and
calling.
something else, if you have a CD or something you want me to play sometime, you got to bring me a copy of one.
Sure, yeah.
Saturday morning.
Just bring it by here early one Saturday morning, and we'll get you some playtime. Not a lot, but, we'll get you some every once in a while.
That's wonderful. We'll get you some.
Thank you.
I just want
Bye-bye.
I just want to remind the viewers that we'll be on the air early next week. We'll come on the air shortly after 9 o'clock, and we will have Troy Petit with us from Oklahoma. He is a Cherokee Supreme Court justice, and he lives an interesting life. He portrays Samuel Houston, and he'll have a lot to say about him growing up here on Hawaii Island. Let's get this
Not
call.
too often you have a Supreme Court justice come in.
Too often.
Yeah. Good morning, live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, Ron and David. This is Joe. I really enjoyed Jeff. I don't know him, but this has just been wonderful.
Well, we're so glad that you joined us this morning. We know you listen all the time.
Well, I'll tell you, you talked about Parks and Bells. My boys bought their jeans down there from the time they were little toddlers. I've got shoes that I bought from Applers. Now then, we don't have a place here in town that I can buy my shoes. I have to go out of town.
There's not many places they know how to measure your feet anymore.
Well, I wear them there.
Yeah, you have to order them.
And so I've got a jacket from Thomas Hills. So I've got sheets I'm still using. I got a pennies.
Yeah, me too.
When it was up on Ocoee Street. So, yeah, I have a lot of memories.
Miss Evans worked at J.C. Penney's forever. Violet Evans.
I knew her real well.
When we first got married and I had no idea what kind of things like that to buy, she would be a big help, in a day when you could get help at the stores.
Right. Well, as I've told Ronnie, I'm not from here. I moved here when I was just a teenager because I lost my mother.
Right.
And they two or three men stands out in my mind, and that was Gene Norris and Toby Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but whenever we'd go over there at Norris's and get a Coca-Cola, Gene was so nice to us. We'd go in Toby's and get a bar of candy or something, and Toby was so nice. And I just never have forgot those two kids. See, I was just a teenager.
Mm-hmm. You were young.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I haven't forgot that. So my kids, they wear Levi's now. But Polly Thompson, she never asked the size or anything. She just went to the shelf there and got the blue jeans and put them in a bag, and I brought them home.
She just knew, didn't she?
She knew. She could tell the size of the kids and all. And
And there weren't a lot of choices of jeans. It was jeans or jeans, right? Well, thank you, darling, so much for being a listener, and we always appreciate your calls.
Well, thank you so much, but I don't know what I'd do without you on Saturday morning because I look for it.
Well, we hope you don't have to find out.
I really really enjoyed this guy here.
Well, we've been trying to get him on here for a little while. He's just been a busy guy, and we booked him about 3 months ago.
I'll tell you, I could listen to him.
And I think it's going to be it's a show that we need to do more on this topic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Joe.
Well, thank you.
Love you too.
Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Ron,
Yes, ma'am.
play me my song. You know which one.
Swinging.
Just a swinging.
Yes, sir.
I'll find it.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Gene Norris had a station over there before he moved out on 25th Street. He had a station over at the corner of Central Avenue and Benton Pike, right down from Vest, just south of Vest Grocery.
And, she mentioned something. If you like Old Town Cleveland, what you could do is drop a letter down to Whoop FM down here at the Village and say that you appreciate them keeping Old Town Cleveland on the air. Well, we got to tell the bosses. Somebody ought to know we do a good job.
We often mention to folks that we've volunteered to do this show for 5.5 years now, and we enjoy it.
Go ahead, caller. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hey, Ron, I was going to tell you something that was kind of funny to me one time.
I
worked at Superior Cash Market, and here's this long, big blue limousine pulls in the front door one day, and there was this elderly gentleman in it, and he blowing his horn, and I didn't know, so I went out to the car, and he says, Sonny, he said, here, son, I need to cash this check, and he was shaking so bad he couldn't even sign the check. But he made a couple of marks on it, and I walked back, and I thought, who in the world is this guy here? And I walked back in, and Hollis Pretty says to me, he says, Hoyt, that is Walter Fike. He's the only man in Cleveland that gets curb service, and you cash whatever check he brings down here.
I love it.
Was that before Clyde Humbert worked down there?
Oh, I see Clyde and Dan McDowell.
Yeah.
Hollis Pretty owns Superior.
Okay. What I remember about Clyde Humbert, you'd walk in there and you'd check out and he'd say, thank you, come back. Thank you, come back.
That's right, exactly. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I just want to share that with you.
Thank you.
See you, Hoyt.
I love to hear Hoyt laugh. Gosh, this 2 hours has already come and gone, Jeff, and we really appreciate you being here with us today.
It's been fun.
It's been
Reminiscing.
fun, and we need to, a few months from now, kind of do a repeat. You find somebody come in here with you, and maybe that Randy Fox that knew everything.
Judge Fox.
He
knew everything about everything that went on over
Or
on
if you
4th
could
Street.
get Joe Stamper in here. Oh, my goodness. Joe's
a little bashful.
Joe'd be a good one. You know what? Joe's grandfather started out over in Ocoee.
And his lovely
Otto.
wife.
And
that her family run Abel's.
Otto Stamper.
Yeah, that's right. His lovely wife's family ran Abel's, and
that's where what was the former? Oh my goodness,
we don't know.
Clyde. I mean, my mind blank. He became the
Ron will tell us every detail but the person's name.
He was the county court clerk for many
Clymer.
Claude Clymer, yes. Yeah. He worked at Abel's as
he was a watch repairman.
Watch repairman, right, yeah.
He got hurt playing football
right.
with Bradley and lost his leg.
And probably today that would not have happened. You know, the medical.
Yeah, I don't
know.
He got clipped, I believe, in a Purple Pounder game. I believe.
Anyway, it was. I remember reading about it. It said they waited till the next day to take him to the doctor or something, and then it was too late. Now they hauled him in there immediately.
Oh yeah,
it wouldn't happen now.
Well, and he continued to play. I think he was he helped for extra points and things after even that.
Anyway, he was a watch repairman, and his buddies got him to run for county court.
And that the rest is history, isn't it? He was there.
County court.
Was
clerk.
it? How long was there? 40 years or 20?
He was in there for a long time.
Yes, everything. We could talk about politics for a long time too. The old politics. We don't want to talk about this new stuff.
Joe Talley was,
Joe Talley and
he was.
Jimmy Logan.
Jimmy
Logan worked. I think he worked at a dry cleaners or something before he was ran for register.
Grew some good gardens too.
So they lived over on those little houses that face the back of the boys' club now. Well, folks, we're going to have to get off of here.
Let me do my little spiel here. Of course,
spill away.
Every week we try to remind everyone to start writing down your family history, your own history. Go talk to your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, your moms, your dads, your neighbors. Pull out those old pictures, let them look at them, and get some white stick-on labels and label who is on these, who's in those pictures. Share those pictures with people, and you'd be surprised what everyone would. They see an old picture and say, "That my father used to shop there. I knew that family." You got to do that. What we want to do is save our history, and every week we say we'll always remember about Pearl Harbor, but
will we remember your Aunt Pearl? See you guys next week on
Bye-bye,
Old Town
y'all.
Cleveland.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. Whoop FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Hello, this is Josh Weekly with the Bald-Headed Bistro, here to tell you about a few of Chef Eric Fulkerson's specials starting this weekend. First, we have a fresh Alaskan king crab leg and corn chowder with fresh local potatoes and carrots. Also, we have a braised short rib with a fall root puree, tomato confit, and a rosemary truffle gloss. We have some new menu items for you to try out, so come down and see us here at the Bald-Headed Bistro.
Check into cash.
The cash you need is closer than you think.
Get an auto title loan today for up to $2,500 at Check Into Cash.
You drive home with the cash in your pocket.
Visit Check Into Cash for an auto title loan today, or get a payday advance for up to $425. Call toll-free 877-262-CASH. Title loan amount determined by value of car and ability to repay. Borrowers often use payday advances over a period of months, which can be expensive. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
Check into cash.
Turn your car into cash at Check Into Cash.
Get an auto title loan today for up to $2,500.
At Check Into Cash, you get the most for your car, and we make it quick, easy, and confidential.
Stop in for an auto title loan today or a payday advance for up to $425. Call toll-free 877-262-CASH.
Title loan amount determined by value of car and ability to repay. Borrowers often use payday advances over a period of months, which can be expensive. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
If you need